Mishna is Ma'id Katan. Mishnah is Ma'id Katan. Parak Av, Chapter 1, Mishnah Yud, Mishnah 10. Okay, continuing with the kinds of things that we may do on Chalamoid, but not in a professional manner. Oisin Maka Lagag Merpeses Masa Hedjet. One can make a railing for a roof and for a balcony in a amateur manner. Now, a makkah, which means a railing, is actually a commandment from the Torah. The Torah commands us to build a safety railing, which the Torah calls a makkah, around a roof, balcony, or any other high place from which people might fall. Now, the balcony, just to explain what this balcony is that the way the houses were set up, you had a lower floor and you had an upper floor. But the way you got to the upper floor was there was a ladder on the ground that led up to this balcony. From the balcony, people entered their homes. So that's the mirpesis here. That's the balcony we're talking about that you want to make this railing around. So the Mishnah says that when you make this railing, you make it ma'aseh hedyet, you make it in an amateur manner, avaloi ma'aseh umen, but not in a professional manner. Now the way to explain that is what does it mean you're going to make it in a how are you going to make it in a amateur manner? So the way they bring down here is for example, by piling stones on top of one another in the form of a wall without cementing them in place. That is an amateur wall. And that you can do on Chalamoid, but not in a professional manner, which means cementing them together. That you can't do. Now, it's important to know that this case of the Mishnah, although it doesn't say it, has a qualification to it. And this is what they bring down here in the notes. The Mishnah speaks of a railing that is not absolutely needed and serves only to provide extra protection. Since it will be used on Yantif, one is allowed to build it on Chalamoid, but since it is not truly necessary, one may not build it in a professional manner. Why is it not necessary? So they explain that we're talking about such as a case where you're building a roof, it's a roof of a building used for storage. That kind of a roof is not obligatory to have a railing on. The Torah's obligation of making a makkah, making a railing, does not apply in that kind of a case when it's a roof of a building used for storage. That's the halacha. Okay. Now, on the other hand, if you're going to be using that storage building and you want to make that railing for safety purposes, that's a tzarech hamayid. That's a need for the yantif, for chalamayid. So therefore, you can do it, but only in a amateur manner. And they bring down here from the Ritva, if it were obligatory, and let's say a situation where you have to build this railing, one would be allowed to make it a chalamayid even in a professional manner. So the Mishnah's case where it says you have to do it in an unprofessional manner is talking about where it's not a railing that's obligatory to make. Okay, that's the first case. Next case. Shavinas hasadokin. That means that we can smear plaster on the cracks, umagila, and we can smooth it out with a magela, with a round piece of wood. Mayad of a regal, using your hand or foot. But not using a trowel. So here you've got a situation like this. The roofs were flat and were covered with clay. If there were cracks in the clay, rain would fall into the house and cause damage. So therefore, there's no question that this is considered a yantif need. But again, you have to do it in an unprofessional manner, which is that the way the Bartanur explains it is that this magila, the Bartanur calls it eitz ugel, a round piece of wood, that with it they smooth out the walls, the roofs. And you use so it's this kind of like some kind of a round block of wood, maybe a cylinder, and you get your hand or your foot, you push it, and that's what smooths things out. That you can use, that you can do, but a trowel, that you can't do. That's already a professional utensil for doing these things, and therefore it's out of the realm of it's a professional manner. Therefore, you cannot do it. Next case.
Would you have to after Yontif? Could you do do it over?
Sure, why not?
Yeah.
Now, next case. Hatzir v'hatzinar v'hakaira v'hamano v'mavteach shenishbaru. We have a bunch of things here that broke. Now, the tzir, I'm just going to read it in English, and then we'll try to explain it more. Okay? So you have, if a pivot, socket, beam, lock, or key broke, misnaktem b'mayed, you can repair them on chol hamoed, even in a professional manner. But but it has to be that you did not schedule this to be done on chol hamoed. Now, what are all these things? So maybe you'll understand it better than me. But some of the things I get, some of them I'm not so sure. Okay? So the first thing is the tzir, which I call a pivot. The pivot is a peg that extends from the bottom of a door, fitting into a hole in the door sill and serving as a hinge on which the door swings. I'm not sure what a door sill is. I don't know what a window sill is. I'm not sure what a door sill is. But the point here is that...
A threshold.
Okay, fine, a threshold. Fine. Now, if so, you've got the door, which is going to be swinging open and shut, right, has a peg on the bottom. And that's the pivot. It then goes into the socket, which I call the tzina, the socket. That's what has the hole that the pivot is going into. So that's to explain. The socket is the hole in the door sill that holds the pivot. Okay, so therefore, so both these things, the Mishnah is saying you can fix them in a professional manner on Yontif. They're very necessary, right? You need your door to stay closed. If your door stays open, so thieves and other things and thieves can get in. So therefore, even to this kind of a loss, you can even do in a professional manner. Right, even in a professional manner, you can use it, because such repairs are needed to prevent thieves from entering the house and causing a loss.
Could also be dangerous.
Whatever you want to call it. But the point here is that these kinds of repairs you could do it on chol hamoed in a professional manner. Now, the other examples was a beam. The beam here is a beam that supports the house, right? If that needs to be fixed, you better fix it. Okay. V'amano is a lock, and the mafteach is a key. I guess it had like these big wooden keys. So these, again, all these things are very necessary the repairs are very necessary to do because of the loss that would be involved in them. And you can misak them when the Mishnah says you can fix them on chol hamoed, it means you can even do it in a professional manner. But the main qualification here is that you cannot decide to wait for chol hamoed to do it. Oh, chol hamoed, I'm not so busy, so I'll get it done then. That you're not allowed to do.
And pre-planned, you're saying? Basically,
to go ahead and wait and plan it to be done, to do it on chol hamoed. Let's say the key breaks on chol hamoed, you fix it on chol hamoed. But if the point was the key broke before chol hamoed, and you're going to say to yourself, well, I'm going to wait for chol hamoed to fix it. That you can't do. Okay, now, last part of the Mishnah. All pickled foods. Pickling means foods that can be pickled in vinegar and salt, such as fish and vegetables, that you'd be able to eat from them on chol hamoed or Yontif. Kaibshan, you can pickle them. The point again here is that although pickling is a malacha, nonetheless, since it's a need for Yontif, you're allowed to do it. But it's got to be that it's going to be ready during chol hamoed or Yontif. Have a wonderful day, an easy and meaningful fast, and a Gemara Chasima Tova.
Thank you, Rabbi.